Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video, I'm going to be demonstrating how to crochet the Bubbling Crochet Cauldron with Lid, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. Please go to the link in the description or click the link for the Bubbling Crochet Cauldron, or you can search for it on your favorite search engine. To make this pattern, I used two different size hooks, a USL 8mm crochet hook and a USH 5mm crochet hook. And of course, I used some lovely yarns. We've got Red Heart Super Saver. I used black, as you can see, for the main portion of the cauldron, but I'll be demonstrating today in this orangey color because it's a little easier to see. And then for the glowing portion, of course, we've got Red Heart Super Glow in Aurora Glow. This is a fantastic new yarn that really does light up under UV light. While the camera doesn't like to show it, when you see it in person, it really is very impressive. Of course, we'll also want to have some stitch markers handy. So let's take a look at our finished Bubbling Crochet Cauldron with Lid. So here we have our Bubbling Cauldron with Lid. As you can see here, we've got the Red Heart Super Saver for the bottom, and it does have 4 little feet that we create with bobbles as we go around. No sewing those on. What you do have to sew on are these 2 additional little handles here. These are just for show to make it look more like a cauldron. Of course, the real showstopper here is our lid made with the Red Heart Super Glow. It pops right off, as you can see right here. We can set it aside and fill our cauldron with candy, treats, spooky things, tricks, whatever you want to put in there. Now, it's hard to see because it is black, which is why I'm going to be demonstrating in orange so you can actually see the stitches. But I want to try and show you here, there's actually a ridge inside. We crochet a ridge right along the inside edge of our little cauldron right there. And if you're familiar with teapots or, other ceramic things with lids like this, of course, this isn't ceramic, this is yarn, but it's kind of the same idea. It's that little lip in there that catches the lid. So we've got our nice little piece lid here that we make with our Super Glow. You can see right here, this is 1 skein of it. And we just put it right in there. Put it right on top of that ridge, and it holds it right in place on top of all of our goodies. And of course, under the right conditions, this will glow up bright and bold. But look at this color. I think it practically glows just as it is. So let's go ahead and get started with our crocheting. All right, so to make our cauldron, we use our Red Heart Super Saver. Again, I recommend black, but orange is a whole lot easier to see here for our tutorial. Now, the trick to this pattern is that for the most part, for basically everything except the little handles here on the side, the yarn is held tripled. That goes for the base and the lid. So to do that, we don't want to have to go out and buy 3 skeins of yarn and pull from each of them. We can triple the yarn right as we're using it. So let me show you real quick how we do that. I do have a separate tutorial for that here on the Moogly YouTube channel if preferred. Now I'm going to come in just a standard amount like I normally would here for a slip knot, but I'm going to make that slip knot a little bigger. I'm going to make it nice and loose. I'm not going to worry about it fitting my hook. In fact, at this point, it doesn't matter what hook size I'm using at all. This part is just with my hands to triple the yarn. So I'm going to take that first slip knot and I'm just going to grab my yarn as if I was going to chain with my fingers, basically, pull it up through that loop. I'm going to pull the loop up really big. Now, these loops don't all have to be the same size. They don't have to be even in any way, but I'm just going to keep making these giant chains with the yarn. You can see I've pulled up quite a bit of it here. I'm just taking my time to straighten it out as I go. Probably would have been easier if I hadn't pulled up quite as much from the skein and let myself pull it out of the skein to do this. But you just want to take your time. Watch for knots here. I've got one trying to pop in. So I'm just going to take a second to undo that. Basically, you just keep making these really loose chains. All right, there we go. Got that knot out. So as I was saying, we just keep making loose chains like this. Big ones. Doesn't matter how even they are at all. What happens then? We go back to the beginning here. You can see our yarn is now tripled. We've got 3 strands in any given spot. So now we can crochet with this tripled chained strand, if you will, as if it was 1 strand. So we're going to make this yarn big and bulky with that little trick. So now we can take our US 8mm crochet hook and use it with our triple stranded yarn and get a nice stiff fabric, which is very much what we want for our cauldron. We want it to be able to stand up here on its own. It doesn't have any special lining or anything. It stands up nice and stiff. So if you are a looser crocheter, you may want to go down a hook size. I'm using 8mm. You may want to try a 7mm or even a 6.5. if you find that your stitches are still, well, nice and drapey would be the usual assessment, but right now we want them nice and stiff. So let's get started. Now that we've got our yarn tripled, we can start with round 1. Now you may be saying, there's no way she just made enough yarn for the cauldron, and you're right. You can see that last loop is there. I will just keep adding more of those triples of the yarn, keep looping it through as I need more yarn and as I pull it up out of the skein. I don't want to do the whole skein ahead of time because it will get tangled up. So back to round 1. We're going to start with a magic circle. I'm going to come in several inches here from my slip knot. Pretend that's the new start of our yarn here, and go over my forefinger twice towards me. Then I take my hook, insert it under both of those loops. There we go. Make sure to catch all those strands. Now I'm going to pull this strand in front of this strand. We're going to call this all one strand for now here. There we go. Yarn over, pull through, and now I will start the instructions for that round. I chain 1, and then I work 6 single crochets into the ring. So when I do that, I need to go under all those bits of the strand, if you will, all those individual yarn strands. Yarn over, and I want to make sure that with each of these stitches, I catch the loop that goes around my finger and this tail end. Then I can finish my single crochet. Oop. Carefully pull all of those bits through there. There we go. If you feel like you lost one, it's still crochet. We can still pull our stitches out and redo them. Just want to make sure to take our time when you're working with yarn held tripled to catch it all. So if you feel like you lost something, no big deal. We go in and grab it again. There we go. So now we've got our first single crochet into the ring. And this is where our stitch marker comes in super handy. We want to grab one of those and put it right in the top of that first stitch. There we go. We are working in a spiral, so keeping a stitch a stitch marker in the first stitch of each round will really help you keep track of your place. So that's our first one. We need 5 more for a total of 6 single crochets here in round 1. So I'm going to continue putting these into the ring, making sure that I go into that ring and over that tail with each stitch, because pulling on that tail closes up our circle and creates the magic in that magic ring. So I'll see you here when I've got a few more stitches into this ring. Now I've got 6 single crochets worked into the ring. You can see my tail end there has been enclosed in each of those stitches. So at this point, you can go ahead and take that tail end and pull on it real hard to close up that center circle. The nice thing about Red Heart Super Saver is you can pull pretty darn hard on it. I know I've never broken on it by pulling by hand, so you can pull as hard as you need to get that closed. If it just isn't pulling, don't worry about it. You can always, when you go to weave in these ends, use those ends to cinch up that circle a little bit more from the inside. So now we are ready to begin round 2. You'll notice I did not slip stitch to that first stitch. This piece is worked in a spiral. So we want to keep that stitch marker in our first stitch. We're not going to join and we're not going to chain 1 anymore unless the pattern specifically tells us to. So for round 2, we're just starting our flat circle here at the bottom of our cauldron, working our way up. So we're going to work 2 single crochets in each stitch around. Standard flat circle stuff. But again, we've got our yarn held tripled. So just make sure to make more as you go and as you need it. Now, because we've got these big stitches here and we are working stiffly, I do find it difficult to get into the stitch with the stitch marker still in there. There's just not quite as much room. So I just keep kind of mark it with my thumb before I take it out, pull it out, and then get that new stitch in there right away. And get the new stitch marker in the top of the first stitch of our round. So for this round, we've got 1 stitch in that stitch. We put a 2nd stitch in that stitch. And then we do that all the way around. We're going to double our stitches. 6 in round 1, we'll have 12 in round 2. So here we are at the end of round 2. We've gotten all the way around again, and we can tell because thankfully we've got our stitch marker waiting right there for us. So now we're ready for round 3. Again, we're continuing with our basic flat circle pattern. For those who are familiar, we'll work 1 single crochet in the next stitch and 2 in the stitch after that. And that's our repeat. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, all the way around. So we'll end up with a total of 18 stitches after round 3. So let's go ahead and start it together. Again, you can see how stiffly I've been working into these stitches. I really kind of have to use a little bit of force to get my hook in there. So when that's the case, I like to take that stitch marker out ahead of time. Makes it a little bit easier to get in there. So we put our single crochet right in that next stitch. We know that's our first stitch. We get it marked. So there is 1 stitch in the next stitch, and then we need 2 stitches in the stitch after that. 1 and 2. And you can already tell at this point that the fabric is quite stiff. Not only, of course, does it stand up, if I wave it around like this, but it feels stiff. It feels tight as I put my hook in there. So if you feel like it's really floppy or loose, then that's a good signal to go ahead. You can go ahead and pull it out while it's still early days and switch down to a smaller hook size. So once again, for round 3, our repeat is 1 stitch in the next stitch, 2 stitches in the stitch after that. Keep doing that all the way around, and I'll see you at the end of round 3. And here we are at the end of round 3. Now we're ready to begin round 4, which is the round where we make the little feet for our cauldron. Now for this, we're going to be making bobbles, which normally, when you're crocheting, push out towards the opposite side you're working from. So if I'm working from this side, when I'm making bobbles, bobblies, whatever you want to call them, normally they pop out on the wrong side of the fabric. They'd be back here, which, is just the way they work. If you're working in rows for a blanket, that's great. But for this project, we want our little bobbles to pop out towards us. This is a little different. It just takes a little extra effort, but we're going to do it together here. This way, they'll be popping out on the right side so they can make the feet for our cauldron. So let's make round 4 together. So we're going to start by making 2 single crochets in the next stitch. So we know that's our first stitch. So we'll go ahead and take that stitch marker on out of our way here. And we'll go in there for 1 stitch. Put the stitch marker in the top there. And then a second stitch in that same stitch. So 2 single crochets in the first stitch, then single crochet in the next 2 stitches, 1 in the next stitch, 1 in the stitch after that. There we go. Then we are going to single crochet and bobble in the next stitch and push that bobble forward towards us. So that's the extra step that isn't usually on a bobble. Now, the other thing about bobbles is they're made of double crochet stitches, and they could be made of anywhere from 3 to probably 30 if you could fit them all on there. This one is going to be a 4 double crochet bobble. So let's go ahead and work it together. Now, like I say, the next stitch gets a single crochet and a bobble. So we make the single crochet first. There we go. And now we're going to make the bobble. So to make the bobble, we're going to make it in that same stitch. We yarn over, go in that same stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, and we're going to pull through the first 2. There we go. So we leave those last 2 loops on the hook. We've got our active loop from the last stitch and the top of that first double crochet that isn't finished. That's the first one of 4. We're going to do that 3 more times. So we yarn over, go back in that same stitch. This can get a little crowded, so be sure to try to pull your yarn over here to the side when you make your yarn over. That will help it be a little smoother. Now we do the same thing. Pull through those first 2 loops. It can be a little tricky, but just take your time with it. Stop when that last loop is left at the top of your hook. Now we've got 3. Yarn over again. Go in that same stitch. Straighten out our yarn here. Nice. Yarn over, pull up our loop. Yarn over. Get all those strands on there. Give it a little yank if it's starting to get a little tight. And pull through just those first 2 loops. 1 and 2. There we go. All right, we've got 1 more to go. Yarn over, on that same stitch 1 more time. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over, and pull through the first 2 loops. Let's see, I got 1 and 2. There we go. Now, we should have a series of 5 loops on our hook. The one from the last stitch are active loop, and then the tops of those 4 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4. So to finish a bobble, what we normally do is yarn over and pull through while pushing back on that stitch. That makes it bounce out into the really gorgeous bobble on the backside of our fabric. For this one, we want it to come towards us. So we want to try and push it towards us while we yarn over and pull through. Now, if that's really difficult, if it doesn't work and it pops out towards the other side anyway, that's okay. Take the handle of your crochet hook and push it back through. It's Red Heart Super Saver. It's yarn. It can handle it. Let's go ahead and see what we can do. I'm going to do my best here to kind of push it forwards towards me, yarn over, and then I'm going to pull through all these loops. This can be a little tricky. The way I like to do it is to point the hook portion of my hook down towards the base of the stitch while simultaneously pulling up on those stitches to create a little bit of space underneath. So sometimes it works, sometimes it still catches. Let's see. Got all the way through. So now what I like to do is just give that a little tug, pull those stitches nice and tight together and make sure they're popping out towards me. If they're going the other way, that's okay. You can just brute force them back towards you, just like that. Now that is our first one. Doesn't look like it pops out much. It really pops out. Bobbles really pop out when you make that next stitch to pull it back down. So go back to our instructions. The next thing is single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So be careful because the bobble is so big and it had all these stitches in it. It wants to try and cover that next stitch. Just yank it out of the way. Pull it out of the way here. Find that next stitch so you don't accidentally miss it. And we're going to put our single crochet right in there. Make sure you pull this one down so it doesn't try and sit up atop of that bobble. There we go. There it is. And you can see how beautiful that bobble is popping right out towards us now. So that's the first one. We need to go into that next one. There we are. Like so. And you can see now, again, the bobble is sticking out beautifully and it's going to make a great little foot. So going back to our instructions here, we worked the single crochet in the bobble. We single crocheted in the next 2 stitches. So next we work 2 single crochets in the next stitch. 1 and 2. There we go. And then going back to our instructions again here, we single crochet in the next stitch. And then we bobble in the next stitch, just a bobble all by itself. So same thing that we're going to do 4 of those double crochets. So let me get that straightened out again here. Get our yarns all prepared for our big stitch here. Remember, we yarn over. Now we're going to go in the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. So now we have 2 loops on the hook. We want to have a total of 5. Yarn over again, go back in that same stitch, yarn over and pull up our loop, yarn over and pull through 2. Now we have 3. Yarn over again, in that same stitch, yarn over, pull up our loop, yarn over and pull through 2, and now we have 4. Last one, yarn over, go into that same stitch, take your time, keep your yarn nicely straightened out, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. Oop, there we go. Make sure we get all those strands off our hook. Now we've got 5 loops on our hook. This time, for this pattern, we want to push our bobbles towards us before we yarn over and pull through all 5 of those loops on the hook. Like so. You can give that a little zhuzh back and forth on the yarn to tighten that up. And then that is the first half of that round. So let's do that repeat one more time. We're starting back at the beginning of the brackets. 2 single crochets in the next stitch. So again, we've learned we need to push our bobble out of the way there. Make sure you're getting that very next single crochet. Make sure the bobble stays pushing out to the front there as you make that next single crochet stitch. That kind of, like I say, that next single crochet after the bobble is what really helps it pop. So we've got a single crochet in that stitch. We need a second one. There we are. 2 single crochets in the first stitch. Now, what's this? I can feel, because I'm always straightening out my yarn to make sure it's not getting tangled. I'm at the end of my triples. No big deal. I find the loop, the last loop there, pull some yarn through it, and just make some more of that tripled yarn. So I'll just do that here for just a moment, and then we'll get back to our stitching. Okay, got a little bit more yarn made. So we've started our repeat again with 2 single crochets in the next stitch. Then we single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So there's 1 and 2. There we go. Then in the next stitch, we're going to single crochet and then bobble. So we put the single crochet in first. And then let's make that third bobble. We're going to yarn over, go in that same stitch, yarn over and pull up our loop, yarn over and pull through 2. Now I've got 2 loops left on the hook. Yarn over, go in the same stitch, yarn over and pull up our loop, yarn over and pull through 2. Oh, got a little strand there. There we go. 3 loops left on our hook. Yarn over, go in the same stitch again, yarn over and pull up our loop, yarn over and pull through 2. There we go. Now we have 4 loops left on our hook. We need 1 more. So we yarn over, go in that same stitch one last time, yarn over and pull up our loop, yarn over and pull through 2. There's 1 and 2. There we go. Now we have 5 loops on our hook, our 5 multi-strand loops. So it's time for the big maneuver. We yarn over, push that forward, and do our best to just pull it on through. If it gets caught, don't worry about it. You can pick off those loops one by one if you need to. Then, going back to our instructions, once that bobble's in there, we single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So make sure to pull that bobble aside to find the next stitch. Those really like to hide after those big wide bobbles, shells, any stitch like that. There we are. So we've got a single crochet in the next stitch. It's made our bobble pop out nicely. Single crochet in the next stitch after that. Then 2 single crochets in the next stitch. 1 and 2. I always like to keep my yarn straightening out, especially when it's tripled. It's good to just kind of run your hand right along it and it straightens all those strands back out. There's that second one all finished. And now we single crochet in the next stitch. And then we bobble in the very last stitch. And we know we're in the right spot because our stitch marker is waiting right there for us. And we can also see that those 4 little bobbles are going to be really nicely spaced out to be the bottom of our cauldron. So let's make our final bobble for this pattern here together. We're going to do that last stitch right there. Insert our hook, yarn over, pull up our loop, yarn over and pull through 2. So now we've got 2 loops on our hook. Yarn over, insert our hook, pull up our loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Leave 3 loops on our hook. Yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over and pull up our loop, yarn over and pull through 2. 4 loops on our hook, last one. Yarn over, insert our hook, pull up our loop, pull through 2, 5 loops left on our hook, 4 double crochets begun but not quite finished. Now we finish them all up together for our bobble. Yarn over, push that bobble towards you if you can, and pull that loop on through. Now, you know, we are working in a spiral, so we're not going to have a slip stitch here. But round 6, which is next, we'll start with a single crochet. So right now it looks like that last bobble's kind of hanging out in the wind, not quite bobbling as much as the others, but we know when we start round 6, it will pull down and be just as bobbly as the others are right here. So that is what it should look like at the end of round 4. All right, so round 5, we go back to making sort of our basic flat circle pattern. Although we threw some bobbles in there, we actually did keep our stitch pattern and went up to 24 stitches in round 4. So for round 5, we're going to split our increase a little bit just so that we keep the shape of our cauldron nice and round by working a single crochet in the next 2 stitches, then 2 single crochets in the stitch after that, then a single crochet in the stitch after that. And that's our repeat. So you'll actually have 3 stitches in between each of your increases. Sounds a little confusing, but let's go ahead and make it together, or at least we'll get it started and going here. So round 5, we start single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So we know that first one's going to be our first marked stitch. So I'm going to move that stitch marker on out of the way here and move that bobble out of the way as necessary. So we can get on in there for our first one. Again, keep that bobble pushing out towards us. If it insists on going the other way, you can just push it back through. I actually just use the handle of my crochet hook when they are stubborn like that and push it right on through. There we go. Now we've got our first stitch marked here for round 5. Make sure that pulls down nice and tight. Standard size single crochet like the others. So now our bobble is popping out nicely. Single crochet in the next stitch. There we are. And then 2 single crochets in the stitch after that. 1 and 2. And then to finish our repeat, 1 single crochet in the next stitch. Oh, and I'm at the end of my strand again. So I'll make a little bit more yarn here. And then we'll do that repeat again, so that you see how it works here. There we go. All right. So there is that last single crochet. So our repeat, again, for round 5 is single crochet in the next 2 stitches, 1, 1, then 2 in the next, 1, 2, and then 1. So we start over at the beginning. 1, And we just crochet into the top of those bobbles like they were any other stitch. 1, then 2, 1, 2. Oh, looks like I lost a strand there. Let me pull that back out. Happens every once in a while. It's just something you need to pay attention to. There we go. So where were we? We've got our 2, 1, 1. So there should be a second one in this stitch. And then 1 in the stitch after that. Let's do that one more time since we kind of got interrupted there. One more repeat. Single crochet in the next 2 stitches. 1, 1, then 2 single crochets in the next stitch. 1 and 2, and then 1 in the stitch after that. So just don't forget to start that repeat all the way over again and work your way all the way around, and at the end of round 5, you should have a total of 30 stitches. So this is what it should look like at the end of round 5, and we had our repeat 1, 1, 2, 1 all the way around. Now we're ready for round 6, where we're going to single crochet in the next 4 stitches, and then 2 in the stitch after that, and then repeat that all the way around for a total of 36. So let's go ahead and get it started together. Get our stitch marker out of the way here. Start our first of 4. There we go. It's always a good idea to take a moment in between each round and make some more of that tripled yarn if you hadn't already. I just like to make it as I go because I don't want the actual tripled yarn to tangle up on itself, so a few feet at a time usually works well. So we've got 1, 2, 3. Again, still nice and stiff. That's what we want with this fabric for this cauldron. 4 ones, and then now we've got a 2, an increase. So there's our 2. So let's do that one more time, and then I'll meet you at the end of the round here. We go 1, our second one, third one, fourth one, and then 2. There's our increase. So continue that all the way around, and I'll see you when we're ready for round 7. Alrighty, and this is what it should look like at the end of round 6 with a total of 36 stitches. Now, round 7 is simply worked even. 1 stitch in each stitch around, same total, 37 stitches. So we're going to skip that one for time here today and move on to round 8. But if you're following along with the pattern and the video, pause for a moment, make round 7, and now we'll come back for round 8. So for round 8, we're going to start with a single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So we're going to get our stitch marker out of the way. Guess I did have room in that one. So there's 1. Get our stitch marker back in there again. And then a single crochet in the next stitch. So 1, 1, then our 2, our repeat. So we've got 1, 1, 2. So there's 1 and 2 in that stitch. There we go. Get my yarn straightened out a bit here. Then, going back to our instructions, we single crochet in the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. So we have another one of those split increases where the increase is kind of in the middle of our repeat. So you always want to make sure you go back to the beginning of that repeat every time. So that means let's do it again here together. Single crochet in the next 2 stitches. This is the beginning. 1 in the next stitch, 1 in the stitch after that, then 2 in the next stitch. So far we've got 1, 1, 2, and then single crochet in the next 3. So it's 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1. 1, 1, and get that through, and 1. There we go. So that is our repeat for round 8. And at the end of round 8, we should have a total of 42 stitches. So when you've finished round 8, you've got an extra round in here from what I do, so it should be curving up just a little bit more. And now you're ready for rounds 9 through 13, which are again, all just worked even. Single crochet in each stitch around, creating the sides here, the even sides of our cauldron. We're just working straight up, no change in the stitch count. Then we get to round 14, where we start doing some decreasing to bring it in, but we also create the ridge that our ledge on the inside of our cauldron will rest on. So what we want to do for round 14, we're just going to go ahead and jump right to that here. Again, if you're following along with the video and the written pattern, go ahead and pause, make rounds 9 through 13, just single crochet in each stitch around, and you'll be ready for round 14. So round 14, the way we create that ridge is we work this entire round in the front loop only. So what I need you to do now is look really closely at your crochet stitches, specifically not the front of them, but we normally kind of look at our perspective, but the top where we've got those V's. When you look at the V, if you turn it this way, it looks more like a V, but we want to look at it this way. This is the way we're crocheting. The front of those loops is the front loop closest to us. The one furthest away is the back loop. If we were to flip our work for some reason, we decided to start turning our work, now this would be the front loop right there, and that would be the back loop. It's always relative to the crocheter. So for this round, we're working under just that front loop. We want to leave that back loop unworked because that's where we're going to attach our yarn to create the ledge on the inside of our cauldron. So all that said, let's go ahead and jump in. Again, we're going to work this entire round in the front loop only. So let's go ahead and get our stitch marker out of the way here. We're going to start by single crocheting in the next 5 stitches. So first one, we go right in there. Same thing as usual. Normally we'd stick our hook straight on through. Now we want to come up under just that front loop. We want to come up right in the middle of the stitch there. It might be a little tricky, but it takes a little getting used to, but that's okay. Once we've got our hook in there, we can go ahead and yarn over and finish our single crochet just like we normally would. It's our first stitch of the round, so I'm still going to put a stitch marker in there. And if you want to, this is optional, you can take an additional stitch marker or scrap piece of yarn and put it around the back loop that you didn't work into right here. It can be hard to find. Take your time. If you're new at looking at your stitches, take your time and see we've turned our work around. This is the inside of our cauldron. This is the stitch we just made. You can see there's those loops right there we didn't go under. That's where we can put our stitch marker to mark out the first one of those unused loops. We're going to come back to those later. So right now, that stitch marker just hangs out right there. All right, so let's come back to our work here. Get my hook back in my loop. There we go. So going back to our instructions, let's check again where we are. We're working in the first 5 stitches here just as regular single crochet. So we've got the first one done, but front loop only. Keep doing that front loop only for the next 4 here. The whole way around, in fact. Go under just that front loop. Yarn over, pull up our loop there. Single crochet. Just like normal. The only difference is we're being careful to grab only that front loop. Now, if you wanted to mark all those unused back loops, you could. I find marking the first one usually gets me on the right path. So there's 3. Let's do 2 more. 4. And 5. Oop. Hook goes too far, just pull it back out. No big deal. There we go. All right, so now we have single crocheted in those next 5 stitches. We've got that back loop unworked. It's a little easier to see now that there's some more of them. It's creating a really nice ridge right there that we can go back to later. And next, to complete our repeat for round 14, we single crochet 2 together. So again, we want to use just those front loops only, but to single crochet 2 together or make a single crochet decrease, we go into the first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Then we go to the next stitch. Again, front loop only, yarn over and pull up our loop. Now with 3 loops on our hook, we yarn over and pull through all 3. There we go. And that's our repeat. We do it again. Again, front loop only all the way around for round 14 here. So we start at the beginning, single crochet in the next 5. So there's 1, 2, 3. Oop, there we go. Take our time with it. 3, 4. Get in there. All right. And 5. Oop, there we go. All right. Then we need another one of those single crochet 2 togethers. Go into the first stitch there, or the next stitch, I should say, front loop only. Pull up our loop. Go to the next stitch after that. Yarn over and pull up our loop. 3 loops on our hook. We can yarn over and pull through all 3 to finish. So that is our repeat that we go all the way around for round 14. Make sure you get under that front loop only. We really want to have that ridge left behind for us that we'll come back to later. Otherwise, we keep going around, and with those decreases, at the end of round 14, we'll be back to 36 stitches. All right, so here I've finished round 14 on our little sample. Of course, yours should be significantly taller. The ridge is right up here. So you can see here, though, on the orange, much easier, that we've got that ridge running all the way around from that unused back loop from our perspective that we can go back to later. So now we're ready for rounds 15 and 16, which are the final 2 rounds for our cauldron. Round 16 is really just a nubbin to finish it up. Round 15 is our last full round. So let's go ahead and get that started here together so we can really wind it all up. So for round 15, our repeat is single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So let's go ahead and take our stitch marker out of the way here. Put our first stitch in here. Now you may have noticed I'm holding my hook differently than I do for a lot of other patterns. I tend to use more of a pencil hold more often. But when I'm working with a really stiff fabric like this, I find it easier to hold my hook in the overhand method. So if that's something you've been struggling with, then definitely give it a try. Try changing your hand hold when you're working with the stiffer fabrics like this, and you might find it a little bit easier. All right, so we've got our single crochet in those next 2 stitches. Now we single crochet 2 together. We pull up a loop from the next stitch and then a loop from the stitch after that. Yarn over and pull through all 3. Carefully. There we go. And then our repeat finishes with single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So once again, we want to make sure to start at the beginning of that repeat every time. Remember, our repeat doesn't have 3 stitches. It is a 5-stitch repeat. Need to make some more yarns. Let's just look at it together here. We've got single crochet, single crochet, single crochet 2 together, single crochet, single crochet. That series of 5 is our repeat that will take us all the way around for round 15 and leave us with 30 stitches. So for round 16, we just want to finish off because we've been working in spirals. If we just stopped right here, we'd have a weird little jog in levels. So we need to sort of bring our crochet back down the level of these stitches so we have a nice round top for our cauldron. So for round 16, we very simply, since we're already in single crochets here, we're going to go with a slip stitch in that first stitch. And we can go ahead and just set that stitch marker aside. We don't need it anymore now. So slip stitch in our first stitch there, and then we literally break the yarn and do a seamless join in the next stitch. That's it. Kind of a crazy looking cauldron right now in our little sample one, but we've seen most of the rows here. So now let's talk about when it is time to cut off our yarn. We want to do a seamless join. We've got this triple stranded yarn. Sounds like it could be complex. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to cut off a longer end than we normally would, just to give ourselves a little extra to work with here. Then, of course, we take our yarn needle, and I'm going to pull up on all 3 strands here. The whole strand is a joint unit that we've been working with. And I'm also going to start to weave these in as a unit, especially for the seamless join portion. I'm going to very carefully take one of my bigger yarn needles here, ones I use for super bulky yarns, so I can get all 3 strands through there. There we go. And then I am simply going to come back here and look at my little mini cauldron. This is the last stitch we worked that slip stitch into, so I'm going to go over here. Now, if I was worried about stitch count, I might come over here if I really wanted to have a finished stitch count. But this is a finished item. It's the last row. We're not crocheting into it at all. Let's just go right to that next stitch. We go under the top 2 loops, just like we normally would with our hook. And when we pull that through, we can bring that needle right back to the stitch we came out of. So you can see that strand is now going here under those 2 loops, and we're going to put it right back here. When I do that, I like to put it under the whole stitch. You can see I go right down the middle and a little bit below there. And then when I pull it through, I can adjust that loop so it's the same size as all the other loops. And now you can see we've got a nice smooth edge without a visual bump there, letting us know where we joined and finished off. So now from here, I can go ahead and weave in these ends. And I may take a couple of stitches here with all 3 strands just to get it started. Let me get centered again there. There we go. Pull these through. But then once I've got that tacked down, what I'm typically going to do is I'm going to go ahead and separate those strands and weave them in individually in different directions. This means our ends are going to be so super secure and they're never going to come out on us no matter how much we use and enjoy our yarn bowls. Same thing on this end. This end can be a little trickier. You might have got the knot here. You might have a couple more stitches in it, so to speak. But very simply, what I like to do is just come back and cut off that knot right at the end. Then I go through, and if there's any little pieces that aren't actually attached to anything at this point, cool, done. And then if I've got a long loop like this, I might actually go ahead and cut that so I can treat it as 3 strands to weave in. Again, start them all as a whole and then weave them in individually. Or if there's just a little loop here, I might just catch that loop with the other strand and tack it down as I weave in those ends. But you can definitely cut them apart and weave them in individually if that's easier for you. And in fact, it will give it a much more secure finish. So our next step is adding the ridge to the inside of our cauldron. We have all those unused back loops that you can see hopefully a little bit easier here in the orange that we're going to be crocheting our lid ridge to. Now I've gone ahead and triple stranded my yarn again, and we're going to be using our larger hook again for this one. So what we're going to do is, again, treat it as if it was right here where the yarn starts. We want to start where it's tripled and come in several inches to begin crocheting. And then we're going to join to any of those unused back loops only. You can join to whichever one you like. We already went ahead and marked our first one, so let's go ahead and join to that one. Now you can really sort of peel your stitches over to make those stitches easier to find, those unused back loops if you like. But just go look right for that first marked stitch there, that loop. Get it out of the way here if we need to. So I just hold my thumb right where I want it to be. And I know I can go right in there with my hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Then we can yarn over, kind of like for a little chain here, and that will lock our yarn right to that stitch. So now we can go ahead and start putting single crochets in each of those stitches around. So we can go right back in there. You can join with a single crochet too if you know that technique. If you prefer to join that way instead of with a slip stitch, however you prefer. But the main thing is just to get a single crochet in each of those stitches around. And if you want to, you can go ahead and put the stitch marker back in the top of this stitch. Probably not necessary, but you certainly can. These are going to stick out certainly on the inside of our bowl, so we'll see where they are. And then we just continue on around, 1 stitch in each stitch around. 1 single crochet in each of those unused back loops. Folding over your fabric like this does, in my opinion, make it a whole lot easier, but you certainly don't have to. The joy of Red Heart Super Saver, though, is that it certainly will put up with it. It puts up with whatever you dish out. And in this case, we want to make a nice stiff dish for our candy. So we appreciate the strength and integrity of this yarn. So we continue to work our single crochets in that loop all the way around on the inside of our bowl. Now, if I flip that back up, you can see how that's going to create a really solid ridge all the way around the inside. So I'm going to keep adding my single crochets to this lip here, and I'll see you as we come around and finish it up. All right, it looks a little goofy here on our sample, but when you've made all the rounds, it works a little bit better. We've worked all the way around here. You can see we're back to that first marked ridge stitch. So from here, we can, of course, do the same thing. We just cut our yarn, and then I like to go ahead and attach it to that first stitch. Again, let's go through and make sure we've got all our yarns attached there. We had an extra. In this case, we've got one of these little loops, so I'm going to make sure to take this loop through it a couple times. Make sure it can't go anywhere on its own. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull this down here, and I'm going to try and get this loop through here as well. The one thing about holding the yarn tripled, you have to just pay a little bit more attention here as we do our weave in our ends. There we go. Okay, now I've got all 3 strands there on my needle. I'm gonna keep that real close so I can get that through here. Go through that first stitch, pull that rest of that tail through, go through the next one, or back to the original one, I should say, to connect it here. And then you can pull those real tight as needed. Get our ends through. There we go. And then you can just go ahead and weave in those ends along with all the rest, and your ridge will all be ready. The only other thing you need to add to your cauldron after you've got your feet and your inner lip ridge there is the little handles. And of course, these are completely decorative and very, very simple. It's just a chain of 10 made with our smaller H hook and the yarn held single. So straight out of the skein, chain 10, cut the ends off and sew them on opposite sides of your cauldron. Very simple. The ends blend in very well. Then we're ready to make our lid. So the second part of our bubbling cauldron is, of course, the bubbling lid. I used Red Heart Super Glow to make the lid, and I just wanted to show real quick, since it's a brand new yarn, that it comes right now in these 4 beautiful colors. I picked Aurora Yellow, which is the brightest and boldest, I think, even before it starts glowing, but all of these glow up really beautifully, so you should absolutely pick the color of bubbles you prefer. So, with that said, let's set these other colors aside and pull up our color of, or our skein rather, of the Aurora Yellow. So, what I do for this one is, again, use it held tripled. So we're going to treat this just the same way we treat our Red Heart Super Saver. This one is 100% polyester. The Red Heart Super Saver is 100% acrylic. So while the cauldron isn't something you're likely to have to wash a lot, if you do need to, they should at least wash up pretty darn similarly. So once again, we just want to get our yarn held tripled. So we're going to do the same thing for our lid as we did for the cauldron. We're beginning in a magic circle, and we're going to work in a spiral, so we will want to have a stitch marker handy and nearby. So once again, I'm going to look at that slip knot as the beginning of my yarn and come in a few inches here to make my magic ring. Insert my hook the same way I did before. Again, make sure we get all those strands of yarn. There we go. Pull the back one forward, yarn over, and pull through. And now we're ready to begin our lid exactly the same way we started our cauldron. Chain 1 and work 6 single crochets into the ring. Again, make sure you get that tail included there as well, and I will see you after we finish round 1. All right, so I've got my 6 single crochets worked into the ring for round 1, just like we did when we started the cauldron. For round 2, we're going to, again, double our stitches, 2 stitches in each round, but this time it's going to be a single crochet and then a popcorn stitch. Popcorns are very similar to bobbles, but we actually finished each double crochet, and they're meant to pop out towards us rather than away. Even though we pushed our bobbles towards us, the popcorns are the ones that are actually meant to face us. But they do have a little bit different structure, so let's go ahead and make some of those together. So once again, we start round 2 with a single crochet in that first stitch, so I'll get that stitch marker out of the way. And then I'm going to put my stitch marker right back in that new stitch now, since our new first stitch of the round. There we go. And now I'm going to make a popcorn stitch right back in that same stitch. Now, much like bobbles, popcorns can be composed of any number of double crochets, really 3 or more. You could probably make it with treble crochets too if you really wanted to, just for that pattern. But for this one, we're using a 3 double crochet popcorn. So let's go ahead and make it together now. We yarn over and go right in that same stitch and make a double crochet. That's it, basically. Make 1 and then 2 more. Right back in that same stitch. A second double crochet. There we are. Need to change my hand hold to get my hand comfortable again. And then a third double crochet. Now, once you have those 3 double crochets made, we're going to pause for a moment, pull that loop up and drop it onto your finger so that our hook is now free. Now what we want to do is we want to come back to the first of those 3 double crochets. So if you're having trouble reading your stitches, you can just count backwards along those V's. 1, 2, 3. That will put you in the top of the first double crochet there. Then we insert our hook right under those top 2 loops as I just did. Right there. That first double crochet. Drop the loop right back onto our hook, tighten it up a bit, and pull it through the top of that stitch. So you can see how that popcorn pops right out towards us. So then we do another single crochet and popcorn in each stitch around. So let's do another pair together. We go right to the next one here. And again, you can push that popcorn right out of the way if you need to, just like we did with our bobbles. And make a nice tight single crochet. We don't want it too tight. We need to be able to work back into it in the next round, but we don't want it to be loose and tall. After that single crochet is in there, we can do another popcorn stitch. So that, again, 3 double crochets all into the same stitch, and we finish them this time. In a bobble, we start them, but we don't finish them. In a popcorn, we finish them. So there's one. Get our second one going here. Just takes a little bit longer when the yarn's this stiff, but that's going to give us the result we want. There's 2. And here's 3. Squeeze it on through. There we go. As soon as that third one's made, we can see 1, 2, 3. Pull that loop up, drop it on my finger. I'll bring my hook right back to that first double crochet I made of this set. Drop the loop back on my hook and pull it right on through the top of that stitch, like so. So you can see we get these really big, bold popcorn stitches popping right up towards us. For this first round, we'll have 6 popcorns with 6 single crochets, of course, in between them. And I'll see you when we're ready for round 3. Alrighty, so here we are at the end of round 2 of our lid. You can see we finish up with our popcorn, and we know from experience with the bobbles that that next stitch is going to help pull that one down. So for round 3, our repeat is single crochet in the next stitch and 2 single crochets in the stitch after that. No popcorns, just simple single crochets to build up our fabric a little bit. So we work into the top of our popcorns just like we do any other stitch. From this side, it can be hard to see the tops of those stitches. They really do push towards the back a little bit. So if it's helpful, you can kind of flip it over a little bit and view it from this angle. We can see our stitch marker right there waiting for us. So let's go ahead and start round 3 together. We know we single crochet in that first stitch, so I'm going to keep my eye on that, keep my thumb on it while I remove the stitch marker out of the way, and then go right in there for our first single crochet. Again, you can see just how stiff these stitches are, but it really does create such a fun and useful item. There we go. So we've got our first stitch made. Now we can put our our stitch marker rather, right in that single crochet. And then our repeat again. 1, 2, 1, 2, all the way around. So our next stitch, like I say, I know it's going to be on the top of that popcorn. If you're looking at this saying, where the heck is my stitch? Flip it over a little bit. Look for those V's in sort of a circle going around the top there. So we've got 1, and then we'll put 2 in this one. 1, and 2. And we want to kind of try and start pulling our lid out flat again. So you can kind of try and help pull your stitches this way a little bit while you make them if you can. But we just otherwise continue that repeat. 1, and our next stitch here. Really get in there. These can be a little bit tight, but that's okay. Let's see. There we go. Get all our loops on there. 1, and then 2 in the next stitch. 1, and whoops, and 2. There we go. So that is our repeat all the way around for round 13, or excuse me, round 3, not 13, round 3. At the end of round 3, we should have a total of 18 stitches. All right, so this is what it should look like at the end of round 3 with about 18 stitches. Round 4, we go back to making our popcorns, and this time we're going to still only make 6 of them, and we want to sort of nestle them in between. So let's go over the repeat that creates that here together for round 4. So round 4 starts with 2 single crochets in the next stitch. So we know that's how our repeat starts. Let me get that stitch marker on out of our way. So we go right to that first stitch there, put our first stitch in again. We want to make sure to put our stitch marker in the top of that stitch. There we are. So then we need a second single crochet in that same stitch. There we go. And then if we go back to our instructions, we then popcorn in the next stitch and then single crochet in the stitch after that. So it's 2 popcorn, 1, 2 popcorn, 1. That's our repeat for round 4. So we've got our 2. Now we need our popcorn. So same thing we did before. 3 double crochets, this time into the next stitch. Squeeze those through if you can here. 1. Let me get a little bit more yarn. There we go. And 2. Finish that double crochet, and then a third one, all in that same stitch there. And now we can look and see we've got 3 double crochets. So we pull up that loop, drop it onto our finger, find the top of that first double crochet, put our hook right in there, drop the loop back on, and just pull it right through. There we go. So we can't forget, finish up our repeat with 1 more single crochet. There we are. If that popcorn likes to get in the way, just push it forward, push it on out of the way so you can finish up that stitch. So once again, our repeat for round 4 is 2 popcorn 1, 2 popcorn 1, all the way around for a total of 24 stitches. When you've finished that up, round 5, you can see right here is just another round of single crochets all the way around, just like we had for round 3. So for round 5, we single crochet in the next 3, and then 2 in the next one. So it's 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, all the way around for round 5. Round 5, excuse me. When we get to the end, we can simply break our yarn and seamless join. And you want to try and block it out a little bit. You don't have to block it, or starch it or anything, but you do want it to lay pretty flat. So if it helps to kind of stretch it out with your hands a little bit, do a little bit of what I call hand blocking. You can actually sort of pull the yarn into the form you want it to be. You want it to be nice and relatively flat. Then we can go ahead and grab our cauldron here. Let me grab our original cauldron right here. You can see, well, you can't really see, but I can feel, and maybe I can show a little bit. There's that ridge right inside there that's going to catch our lid. So now, like I say, it is stiff, but it is still yarn. If you want to, you can, of course, squish the whole thing. So if you need to reshape it a little bit, just make sure, again, your little cauldron feet are sticking out nice and flat. Give it a little round shape here. And then we can just take our lid, put it right inside the top, just like we would with a little teapot lid there. And you can see it catches right on that ledge. It's not going anywhere. Get that all tucked in. And we've got our beautiful, glowing, bubbling cauldron ready for your candy and your treats. And that's how to crochet the Bubbling Crochet Cauldron with lid. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.